Scotland is aiming to get to the net zero by 2045. So that's 5 years ahead.
Is it still just a buzzword just now, or are we truly moving towards resolving it and fixing some of these issues?
I would say the Gen Z, I would say the generation that's coming up, they're more leaning towards even demanding the sustainable way of life.
I've got friends who are directors in some fairly big practices, UK practices, who have got civil architects who are all Passive House qualified. And the reality is there's not a lot of clients are asking for that yet.
But the reason why architects and managers and owners are not really into the concepts of like this numeric carbon zero footprint, sometimes it's not very practical.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenneth Martin, host of the Hard Talks podcast. Welcome back. I am joined today by Derartu Agama. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. Derartu, you are representing the ESG Institute today. Yeah, so looking forward to this one. If you want to just start off, please, by telling us a wee bit about yourself in terms of how you got involved in the industry, and a wee bit about the ESG Institute and what they do for the industry as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Kenneth.
You're more than welcome.
So I'm Derartu. I am a Senior Sustainability Advisor for the ESG Institute. So I'm an urban and environmental planner, and I'm involved with the Institute as a consultant, as an advisor, and we work between different companies, different countries. It's a cross-global company, the ESG Institute. So basically what we do is we translate this complex frameworks of like the environmental deliverables, the ESG, and we kind of try to formalize to bite-sized strategies, like the big frameworks into small policy goals and deliverables.
Right.
So my experience in the Institute, funny enough, I'm from the global south.
Right.
And then here we have a completely different stake or a different approach to the ESG deliverables. So the ESG Institute works between all the companies across different organizations. So, yeah.
Right, okay. So, obviously a global organisation, global network, and that the kind of global sustainability agenda is probably bigger than my brain could handle right now, to be honest with you. Probably fry my brain. So, I'm trying to maybe zone in then a wee bit on Scotland or the UK, you know, and how your organisation fits in with that. So we've got sustainability agendas. Let me think, are we clear on what those are? I mean, obviously I'm sitting here as an architect thinking the sustainability agenda for me really is fed to me through building control standards and planning and regulation from that perspective. Yeah. So I'm going on trust that that we're delivering what the agenda asks us to deliver. And we continue to do that through specification and design, so to speak. However, I'm kind of curious then on your perspective of the current requirements in terms of sustainability in Scotland, UK. If we can define them, are we getting towards them? You know.
Yeah, actually, that's a very great question, because the whole sustainability agenda globally is a massive task, or it's not even clear as to what we're delivering. Many professionals don't know. You work closely with contractors. You're an architect. You work with planners. You work with council people. So many other people have different opinions about that. And it's the right question to ask at this moment, because do we even know what that is and what we're working towards? And because the targets could be big and also very small in terms of localization, that's where the ESG is trying to step in. So if you ask me, the big picture, the UK net zero picture, the 2050 plan. Scotland has even a very harsh plan towards that. Scotland is aiming to get to the net zero by 2045. So that's 5 years ahead. So what are these deliverables? What are we trying to get to? And what are you asking us? Like, what is the global framework asking us? What's the UK asking? I think for that, we have to like go back a little bit and how it started, how we came to this global net zero concept. Because first it was a CSR, it was a corporate social responsibility. It was solely voluntarily. It started voluntarily in Europe. Many companies thought about, okay, let's keep the biodiversity, let's have a natural ecosystem. And then it went into being like a hardcore law. That's what we're trying to enforce here. But now that the government have some metrics, that net zero, life cycle carbon measurement, something with numbers, show me the numbers. So what are we showing? What are we trying to show? So when it comes to Scotland, we have a retrofit-first building system, if I'm not wrong. And it's not as easy as building from a free slate, like an empty slate, because when you have an empty start, you can plan all the net zeros, all the modern things you would like to plan. But now we're working with historical buildings. We're working with utility lines and places that inhabit people. So what are we trying to do? To just understand the concept, it all amounts to sustainability, right? So the first point is what are people supposed to do in the CSR? And then there is the ESG point of it, like environment and government, and then what are we trying to show the government? And then there is the SDG goals. So the junction between the SDG, the CSR, and the ESG is what amounts to sustainability. So what do we do in terms of Scotland? What do we do? What do we mean by deliverables in terms of our construction in Scotland? It means be mindful of if I'm just putting it in a very understandable terms, we can go deeper later in examples and see how that works. But it's about understanding the environment. It's about being sustainable. That means we have to meet our demands now. We have to make economies. We have to make money. But at the same time, without compromising the future, without compromising the biodiversity, without compromising other sectors as well. So it works in coherence. So I would say, what are the sustainable, not the development goals, but what are the deliverables in terms of environmentalism, is that we have to fulfill our needs without compromising other people's needs, other biodiversity, construction, stakeholders. It has to do with economies. It has to do with people, survival, and it has to do with the built-up environment. I don't know if that's making sense. We'll go into that and see different examples.
Yeah, so I mean, it is quite a broad, far-reaching. The term sustainability and what we're trying to deliver is a broad, far. You know, we've got Elon Musk putting rockets in the sky to put satellites in skies and stuff, and what is it, try to put battery packs in space because that's exactly. More environmentally friendly. And in my head, I think, well, is it? I mean, we've already ruined the planet. Let's ruin space as well. You know, there's probably more educated people out there who could tell me if that's the right opinion or if it's just nonsense. But anyway, so yeah, I think sustainability is something that. It's one of those kind of, is it still just a buzzword just now, or are we truly moving towards resolving it and fixing some of these issues?
I would say we're moving towards fixing the issues. In terms of, like I said, it's a mix between lifestyle, it's reaching to people, and it's not just about like having DSLRs or like smart technologies, smart roads. I would say the youth, I would say the Gen Z, I would say the generation that's coming up, they're more leaning towards, even demanding the sustainable way of life. They're going towards biking, they're going towards like having their own little life, which is like very efficient for them. So I would say, yes, we're moving towards it. Has it come from the top down? Is it because we have a net zero concept that we're going through that? I don't think so, but it's just the way the seasons pan out, like the generation or like the lifestyle that we're in. It kind of demands sustainability, and yes, we're moving towards that. It might not be at a pace that we want to move on, but we are definitely going towards that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's my kind of feeling on it, not backed by numbers or specific statistics, but there's a kind of feeling potentially, or my feeling, and it is my opinion, is that it is still kind of something that is intangible for a lot of people. Yeah. I'm running around in a car just now that's 3.5 years old, and it's a big diesel car, and I'm thinking about changing it, and I am consciously thinking about going for something that's hybrid, as opposed to full electric, and that's maybe geared by the fact that there's discussions about how efficient or how environmentally friendly are electric cars truly, because the energy involved in procuring the batteries and upfront energy is actually what you've got to run the car for 5 years or something like that before you, so I get all of that stuff, but it's it's one of those ones that I still think architects or designers right now, it's something that's enforced, and it's not something that a lot of clients stroke developers, not all of them, but not a lot of them, are really willing to truly embrace. It's almost like, we've got to do this, so let's just do it. And there's an element of, what's the quickest, most cost-effective way we can comply with these policies, so we can at least get the building started or the development on the field. And I see that we're going through developments just now, which essentially are looking at brownfield sites. But I mean, these are big brownfield sites, and you look at them, and it's a big field that used to be an industrial site. So yeah, it's got contamination, etc. But when you look at it, it's trees and fields, and there's bunny rabbits running around and all that kind of stuff, So I do kind of wonder if we are kind of really embracing the spirit of it. And then I think about, as a designer, I mean, we've got an architect in the business who's Passive House qualified. I've got friends who are directors in some fairly big practices, UK practices, who have got several architects who are all Passive House qualified. And the reality is not a lot of clients are asking for that yet, They'll maybe at the start of the project say, let's have a wee dabble, let's have a wee think, and then they see the costs starting to increase, because of sustainability issues, and then it's, we need the project to fly, so if we need to dampen down on the sustainability a wee bit, or the material selection associated with that, then that's probably one of the first things to do, is the value engineering exercise, So I don't know if you've got any experience and thoughts on that.
I would say it's all interrelated, right? It's all correlated, like you say it. When you think in terms of the architects or like the construction managers, you would think they would want to make profit, right? And then this new system or law is like telling them, do this, do that. So this construction industry, from the designing up to the final building, it has a lot of stakeholders involved. So if you think about everyone involved in that system, everyone has different agendas, and everyone has different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different people want to make different kind of outputs out of the building, the construction, or I think what you're talking about, you mentioned a couple blockers. The first one is the infrastructure and the grid bottleneck. So you could have the smartest buildings you want, you can have LED lights and then energy consumption wise, but then when you build it, think of it as like you're the site manager. So you're building somewhere in Inverness, or like, let's say up north, you're building somewhere in, let's say just Inverness, and then one time you have to log about the materials you're using and the drywalls. Think about it. What would you think if it starts raining, if there's like a harsh weather right now? You are onto making a sustainable building. And mind you, Scotland has retrofit-first principle. So you might not even building that building from scratch up. You're working on something that's already made. And then your first plan would be to keep that building dry. You won't think, okay, what are my deliverables? What am I logging in? What is this window? Like, you won't think about that. But the reason why architects and managers and owners are not really into the concepts of like this numeric carbon zero footprint, sometimes it's not very practical, because numbers are good, aiming for numbers, amazing. But then unless you have the breakdowns on how to make it on the ground, you also, in terms of sustainability, you have to also think about timing when you're going to finish that building. And then there is nothing you can do about the weather. You did not think, when you're thinking about sustainability, when you're thinking about handing in a project, you take your estimates, and then when you want to plan, when you want to dig, when you want to paint. But then some things like natural, it's not even a disaster, rain or wind or harsh weather, that's not something you plan for. So think about it in terms of the owner. The owner have a different agenda for that building. The contractor wants to get it done. The workers, they might even not be well equipped, or let's say they're not well prepared, not for the weather, not for the logging in, or when you do something, there is always something else that you need to keep up. So there are a lot of bottlenecks when it comes to like delivering these projects. But I wouldn't say there is like a shortcut to any of it, because it has to be contextualized. What is different in Scotland, even in London, in the UK, if you go down south and if you go up north, it's not the same thing. You're not building on the same grounds. Even if the deliverables are the same, the numbers are the same, it shouldn't be, because the weather is not the same, the industries are not the same. When you have to go to like the islands, you have to bet on the ferries to have your produces, like to have your materials. And then between that, you have a contractor, you have the merchants, you have the workers, everything. Even like today, when I try to get here, a lot of things happen. Like there's a lot that we cannot control. So even in terms of like delivering all that, there is no shortcut to it. It has to be contextualized, and it has to be, I would say it shouldn't be like we should be finishing this in 5 years. It should be like more details and more studies and see what could be done. Because if we're pushing people too much, then we're also affecting quality of life. We're also giving people stress around work. Nobody wants to work in that environment because it's impossible. So all those considered, I would say they're not like shortcuts to all of it, but we're going the right direction. I would say we're thinking and we're asking the right questions.
Yeah, I think it's here. Obviously, the sustainability initiative is here, and we're all, somehow or other, we're all doing something towards it. You know, whether we're doing something on one hand that's positive and sacrificing something on the other hand is maybe another conversation. But I'm kind of wondering though, is how do we? I mean, I've got some involvement or understanding through designing buildings, but that's probably about as far as I go. So if I'm sitting in a house as a I feel like a lay person, you know, how do I know that how do I know it's on my conscience and that I'm actually doing something? And then how do we measure the success of that? You know, we've got policies and we're doing stuff, but at what point do we actually measure the success of it and say, do you know what? Because of what we did 10 years ago, you know, we've achieved this, you know, and that this is ultimately a benefit for the human race.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a big question.
It is a big question, but we have indicators, of course. But for anything measurable, we have indicators. Of course, we have the 17 SDG goals. That's like the broader term. It's a macro concept that we're talking.
Right.
So when it comes to the micro concept, that's what I meant by we need to contextualize them. And at the ESG Institute, that's what we do. We take the bigger concept and then try to contextualize it into the small project and how that project could actually measure these things. So if we see the broader concept, like there are the 17 goals. What are we doing? The Sustainable Development Goals.
So what? I mean, obviously, can't talk about all 17 of them, but can you define one or two of them?
One of two would be like sustainable urban environments. Like one of the goals could be sustainable cities, and the other one would be clean water. The other one would be energy efficient cities. So one of those. And then there are also about indicators, 169 indicators, and then another 247 indicators.
Right.
So all of them could be different. So they measure different things. One is about energy, one's about heat wave, the other one is about mobility, the other ones, they're so different. So how do we know when you're sitting in your house and if you're talking about one specific building that you're working on, how do I measure? So that measurement, like the example I tried to tell you, there are logs and deliverables. So like all the materials to use, could be the window, could be the wall, it could be the ceiling, whatever materials you use. You log in how many acres, how many square meters that you're using certain material, when is it produced, where is it sourced from. So it amounts to all the materials that you're putting into, and then you're also recording how many people are working at the site, how many project managers, how many laborers, how many people are working on that site. So and then how long did it take? How long did I take when I doing the basement? How long did I take working on the framework? And what is the framework made of? The structure made of? So the measurements are basically the materials. It's like the carbon, the life cycle of carbon, how much carbon. And also if we have like waste, the construction waste, how much of it is going to a landfill, how much, what kind of materials am I using in terms of like, is it recyclable? So the measurements are nitty gritty, but everything could be measured. So if we're talking specifically about a building, then we're talking about materials.
Yeah, no, I kind of get that then. So is that Passive House Scotland, for example, or Passive House Scotland equivalent isn't quite here yet.
Yeah.
And I think the goalposts and that have moved a few times. Do you know much about it? And in terms of do you think that if architects or designers, everyone in the construction industry, move towards that and follow that it's obviously going to improve things, of course it is, but I just wonder, what do I wonder? I wonder if it's actually going to be all it's cracked out to be, or is it just another layer of bureaucracy for designers to try and manage? I'm all for it, by the way. I'm all for doing it. I understand.
It's a very fair question, honestly, because many professionals ask the same, especially if you're on if you're a practical, not in the offices, just amounting the numbers. See, the discrepancy happens at office. Somebody is like writing numbers, and you're at the field, and you're actually out building something, and is it making sense? So when it all amounts to like, did it give me the amount of money that I needed to? Because if you're thinking as an architect or a builder, you want to make money out of it, which is also part of the sustainability agendas. Yeah. So is it like a bureaucracy? It is bureaucracy for sure, but also it's a decision to go towards that. So when you know you have a goal to work towards, you kind of frame all your developments or constructions or whatever you're doing towards that, which helps a lot. It might seem like it's a bulky process, or it might seem like it's a lot of like bureaucracy jargon, but honestly, it's not, because it gets it easier when you have a goal and working towards that. Yes, we need to work on the contextualizing it, because if you don't understand what you're doing, you better not have it. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. But once at the bottom, what this sustainability agenda is about is that you as a person, as an architect, you be happy with what you do, you be content with your profession. And for you to be content with your profession, you have to deliver the quality products that you promise to produce. But also, if there is another construction manager, he also needs to be happy with his work environment. For that to happen, his work has to actually be completed. So for that work to be completed, some officials in the office said, you have to build towards this way. But that official in the office is also thinking about the future. It's also thinking about the people who are going to inherit this land after us, because we're not the last generation here. So the big picture, the goal actually gives us a direction to go a certain way. We're already leaving, and human beings, good thing about us is we can learn. We're changing, and even the administration system is changing from the, like when we come finally to the ESG, it's like a process we didn't get here at once. At first, it was just about people and environment, and then now it's people, environment, and then economies as well, because economies need to thrive. As you cannot just, be like biodiversity efficient and then not having businesses running around. So it is a bureaucracy, but if it's really broken down to understandable pieces, it's directing us to the right side.
Yeah. So Scotland, do you want to talk about England as well, the UK, or just Scotland? Okay, let's look at the UK then. So I'm trying to think then, obviously the podcast is construction related, but that's built environment, places, people. We kind of understand all of that. I guess my thing is that the podcast is really about trying to understand the big challenges in the industry. Yeah. And several podcasts would suggest there's key themes, and sustainability is one of the challenges. And I still think there's a huge lack of understanding of what that's all about. But, the terms, and we've kind of chatted about that. But the podcast premises is we try and drill down to what is the big key burning issue that in your role within your profession, that if you could fix that tomorrow to get the biggest result, maybe even the biggest catalyst to get the biggest result, what would that thing be that you would probably try and change or influence?
I could mention a couple things, one you've already mentioned, but I would like to mention this gap between policy and reality. So in terms of policy, the UK has the building policy and PF4, like you have to meet certain standards. But then in reality, I'm a planner as well, urban and regional planner as well. So when you plan for this massive carbon reduction, that's your plan. And as a planner, I can plan I can plan an environmentally efficient area or like neighborhood or a house, or you can design a building like that. The policy is there. Okay, reduce carbon. How do I reduce carbon when I can't even control the different the material, the producers, the industries? There's so many stakeholders involved. So what I would fix in terms of what I do, I believe there is a gap between policy and reality. So in reality, before having a policy, now that we're going towards the policy, there's no going back, and we're not saying, okay, 2050 is way too short to meet net zero. I'm not saying that, but if we could be more sensible about our policies, because we're talking about carbon reduction, right? How about we take projects that actually helped in carbon reduction and how long it took them for that to happen? In Scotland, it could be 10 years. I'm just giving examples. In England, it could be 7 years. Somewhere in Wales, it could be 11 years. So I would say the general request shouldn't be the same all across UK.
Right.
I mean, we're around in the same premises. So I would work maybe between the gap. So the gap is the policy and the reality. So that's what we're trying to do in the ESG, trying to translate the bigger principles into the smaller or of deliverables. The second blocker is the data store and greenwashing. So there is data. So there is someone who decides, maybe at the council, maybe at the bigger policy makers. They say, okay, net zero at 2050. But then you are here building your own, you're already building, you're not starting from zero. You've been in this business for a while. And there is data that you know how long it takes to build a structure, or let's say a building or a house or a neighborhood. But then there is data stores. There are new data stores. Like somebody will tell you, measure all these producers that you use, measure all the elements and where it came from, where it's sourced, how long it took, the carbon life cycle. When you try to put all of them together, where do you stand as an architect? You have your own deliverables, you have your own idea of how you want that building to look, how you want that building to function. But then I'm telling you, this is how you want this to function, but think in a different way. It's good if it's on the design phase, you can change that. But if you're already working with a building that's already there, and your national plan is to retrofit and not add anything new, your time is not working together. So what I would like to work as, not just as me, but as somebody, as an environmental professional, I think we need to understand when to stand alongside the policy, or when to stand alongside the deliverables or people who are living it. Because unless we report those problems, we would think Scotland didn't register this much development. Wales did not register. We can't say that. We have to be the voices. We have to show the evidences, because the evidences speak. I can tell you, Kenneth, do this in 2 years. I can tell you, doing it or not to do it, it all depends on the end of 2 years.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you don't have it. There's nothing much that can be done. So in that terms, professionals need to stand where the gap is and not just be pushed around by what's expected of them. Of course, work towards what's expected of you, but then also reporting not just the carbon reduction, but also the problems why we couldn't get to that carbon reduction in a certain way.
Yeah.
But also the third example that you mentioned, the infrastructure and the grid bottleneck. If I want to build something very smart up north, and then I will leave it like, let's say a portable charging slot, let's say, and then you built it, and it's always raining, it's always windy. How long is it going to stay?
Yeah.
Is it even efficient? So I think that's where, as a professional, we would need to look into.
Yeah, so you've mentioned the kind of gap between policy and almost reality and those deliverables. And as an architect, I would sit and go, right, how... I mean, I know there's softwares and there's organisations like yourself that can help, but right now I don't think the industry is wholly geared up for being able to assess and measure those deliverables, alongside everything else that we've got to do.
Yeah.
But no doubt that's going to happen. It's coming, and we'll need to do it. I guess what I'm trying to go with is an architect who's been involved in the industry for 25 years. I'm now being taken down a route that makes me think, I didn't really want to do that.
Yeah.
That was not my definition of an architect, designer, So I think, and yeah, change is fine and things happen, so that's fine. But the previous guest mentions, similar types of challenges whereby you've got policy, and we've got deliverables, but it's that ability to accurately measure it so that we can take stock along the journey and say, is this right? Are we actually achieving what we want to achieve? And I've been thinking about that. My wee analogy is obviously we've got a housing crisis here, so we want to deliver, X number of thousand houses. So let's say in the next couple of years we manage to fix so many of the issues that we're actually achieving the deliverables, and we've got, for example, I don't know a minute, I'd say it's 10,000 a year in Scotland is what we need to deliver. Great, we've delivered 10,000, but they're not sustainable, they're not of high quality, they're in poor urban environments, they've only got a 20-year life cycle, etc., etc. So the problem, I think, is so complex. And sustainability is one of the issues that many guests have talked about in the podcast, that it's difficult sometimes to see the wood from the trees. It's that thing, it's that thing of you just feel as if you're in a bit of a quagmire all the time, particularly as the person who's trying to deliver it. And sometimes the client, whether that's an individual or a company or a government body, I think sometimes the client even doesn't necessarily have not all clients need to make profit. Some clients are trying to deliver something that's of value, and can do that without necessarily delivering that a profit. They probably don't want to hit some form of negative equity in it. They probably want to try and make sure there's a break even. So my point then was the sorry, I forgot the term. Yeah, ESG Institute. Yeah. So how are they now starting to work within Scotland, UK, in terms of talking to government and trying to get that opinion through, feeding back?
Yeah. Mostly the ESG Institute is working with professionals. Unless you need support in a way, it's difficult to help you. So when some organizations or let's say government organizations or construction companies, different clients reach out to us, some of them we deliver trainings on how to design their own metrics and deliverables.
Right.
Sometimes we train them how to make reports, but reports not just on the reduction and on the accumulation of carbon, but just where the discrepancies are, like to just show what's happening in the ground. We're working more on the workforce. I think there's a lot of gap, not just for the ESG Institute, but this market, if we're talking about net zero, in terms of businesses, in terms of construction, because it amounts to everything, basically. It's not just about the built-up environment. It's about economies. It's about people. It's about money and the rural urban linkage as well. Also, how everyone is living together. So we need a lot of market. That's what we've been mostly at the end of our trainings. That's what we end up. We need more professionals. We need more environmental professionals, green professionals. So if every talk is about like green building, green road, sustainability, then there is a huge gap for the market, but also upskilling the people who are already participating in the business. The laborers, could be the workers, the engineers, the surveyors, everyone. So the ESG Institute is kind of training the professionals who are in contact with us, and that's the best we can do.
Yeah, so that upskilling is something that, again, was talked about in the previous podcast and quite regularly, because there is challenges in the industry. The construction, well, actually, there's some challenges throughout many industries within the UK, not just, doctors, nurses, lawyers, trying to get people into those sectors, trying to get them skilled, never mind upskilled,
Right.
It's one of those challenges, I think, at the kind of UK government level that we've just seems to be this lethargy and there's no pace of movement,
Yeah.
So policies, I think, are probably fighting with each other to try and get to the deliverables, making things more difficult than they need to be. And I was actually thinking in the way in about what this conversation could be, and I was distracted in the way in by a construction site not too far around the corner from here where there's kind of new houses being built, but they've knocked down some tower blocks. And of course, the modern thing now is instead of taking that to landfill is to crush it up and use it elsewhere and what have you. But interestingly enough, and this is a random thing I'm going to see here maybe, is the demolition company were spraying the site with water to keep the dust down. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, that's a lot of water, and probably the right thing to do in terms of the protection of the residents and the houses next to it.
Yeah.
And then my strange wee thing in my head said, who made the decision that it was actually more environmentally friendly to spray that amount of water over the construction waste than it was to just accept that there's dust?
I know.
And that my point. That point then goes back to the thing of the analogy of, well, not the analogy, the fact that we've got figures and measures to look at that thing. And I wonder if anyone did in that, and that's just a random thing, But it's kind of where we're going, and I think the more we dive into those things, the more we start to question it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like the more you know, the better you decide. So like the questions you're asking and the things that you see on the construction site, it's quite normal because you've been in the industry and you've been thinking, okay, who said it's a good idea? What if it rains? We could have, what if it rains? It could have been done with zero amount of cost or water or energy. But what about the mobility costs? What about, would it be better to kind of carry away, dump stuff? That's where it comes, knowing better, more practices. Sometimes you could have the policies, you could have the numbers, but then practice working on the field teaches you way more, far more deliverables than the numbers. But like you said, it's a decision that you make at point, and then some people might not understand, or the policymakers might not understand it from the office.
But that's the choke in the whole thing, is you've got, not just about sustainability, the construction industry, I would argue that there's no one more experienced to build buildings and deliver buildings on site than the construction workforce. And I would probably think that by and large, they are the ultimate people who feel the whole wrath of policy.
Exactly.
And they're probably the last to educate themselves in the change in policy. So it kind of lands on them from high above, and they go, "Why am I doing this?"
It's also very frustrating. Think about it. You train yourself something you learned about new, softwares, and then something else comes, and then you have to learn about another thing. When are you going to build? It's also very, changing all the time. So see, when we start talking about having a same goal from the get-go, if you have the broader concept of where you're going, you kind of can guess where you can be, or the kind of professionals you want to hire in your team. You might not be able to do everything on your own, log in, work with the machines, work with decision making. It might not be all you, but then if you have the right people, if you train them the right way, if you have the bigger goal at the jump, I think that helps kind of make better decisions together, because it's interrelated. A lot of people are involved.
Yeah, I think the thing then is the setting of the goal, isn't it? Really. Yeah. And ultimately, if we take it back to basic principles, it's ultimately the client. Well, I debate it with if you want, but is it not then ultimately the client and their desire or their vision for the project and the sustainability response to then potentially pick the right design team to deliver that?
Yeah, but there's also a concept of profit making in terms of clients, if you think about it.
Right.
So if that client is a builder, if that client is making profit out of this construction, they basically want to pay the least amount they could to get more profit, right? So interests of different individuals could be different groups, not even just individuals.
Yeah, well, I think there's I'm trying to think, there's that profit is important for the developer.
Yeah.
Of course it is. There's the question of, have you delivered the profit from the project that you said you would, or have you made more profit? And if so, how much more? Because if you've really made a lot more profit than you'd started out, then have we cut corners, or what's happened that managed to do that?
Yeah.
But then that's maybe at the sacrifice of, as you say, carbon footprint, sustainability, ecosystem, and we're starting to see, I'm saying that a lot of our clients are not, what's the word? It's not their primary agenda.
Yeah.
But you're starting to see, because of the enforcement through policy, they're starting to, and even us, we had a meeting in office yesterday with an ecologist about a housing site, 300 houses, and some of the stuff you're thinking, wow, stuff we didn't know. We learn this stuff as we go. But also how they can influence the size of the of the site. So all of a sudden they want to move development away from that line of trees, and all of a sudden the site gets that wee bit tighter or that wee bit smaller, and you can tell the developers scratching their head going, well, why are you they've got to protect the environment, they get birds and bats and rabbits and foxes and all that kind of stuff, but I guess there's still that element of, but I'm building houses.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who's taking the risk to deliver the houses that the government wants to say that they want, but I've also got to jump through all these other hoops that affects the viability of the numbers of the scheme. And all of a sudden, you do find, well, without a shadow of a doubt, the SME house building market in Scotland has not been supported. There's fewer of them.
Yeah.
And I would probably argue that sustainability, whilst more and more people are embracing it, is also one of the things that probably puts a blocker in itself in terms of allowing the developer to have the courage to actually step forward and do a development.
Yeah. I think if you really think about it as a developer, if we really embrace the concept of sustainability, even in terms of profit making, there is a way around it. So you can make profit in a certain way by like delivering a building in a short time, or like you could bargain on the carbon footprint. But then if you really abide by the right laws, and there are grants, if you really abide by the laws and you save all that carbon that you said you save, and then you have the receipt to show it. See, this is there are so many grants, and there are ways to work around it. There is no one single way to make a lot of profit to get to the point you want to get to. Because if you can work around the sustainability deliverables, okay, one, you could get the most efficient building that amounts to your happiness, basically, because your building is being efficient. And then there are also grants, and money can like be returned in different ways, not just in one way of like cutting some materials or, cutting some labor force or something. Yeah. I think we just have to think about it from a different perspective. And that's what we're planning to get to, because if you start thinking sustainably, other ways can open up. So it's not closed. It's not just about, whatever deliverables did.
Yeah, well, I think that's the interesting thing, because that probably goes to lack of knowledge from, the developers, the councils, the people who are doing these projects. There's probably a lack of knowledge about how some of that profitability could be delivered.
Yeah.
And now that you mentioned, it's probably something I'm going to go away and research tonight, because I'm all on my iPhone sitting looking, right, okay, what are you talking about? Well, I need to go and find out, So, and I've often reflected the podcast. One of the reasons why I do it is because I learn so much, what I do and don't know, and I go and research and I find out. So that's something for my bedtime reading. I think the whole sustainability thing is something I'm trying to find out more about. I think a lot of the listeners and reviewers are trying to find out a wee bit more about it, and that's why I wanted you to come on the podcast. Is there anything in particular that we've not chatted about so far that you think might be worthwhile for the listeners or the viewers?
We pretty much touched all the points I was thinking about. But if I could just stress on one point, this sustainability idea, as bulky as it sounds, if you really embrace it like to a personal level, it could be a lifestyle. It could be a choice that you make every day, like recycling your waste at your house, being an active traveler, which amounts to your health, which amounts to your well-being, which amounts to the safety and beautification of your area. I think it sounds very bureaucratic to a point we hated to even think of the idea. But it could be implemented personally, not just as buildings, not just as policymakers, but it's also a development strategy. Development for countries, development for nations, development for, personal development goals as well. So I would say, let's think more. I'm not trying to advocate for the ESG Institute. I'm just saying this personally.
Well, actually, the thing that's popped in my head there was I was watching the TV the other day. Obviously the World Cup's on, and it was the Japanese fans.
Yeah,
and
they cleaned the whole stadium,
after,
and how everyone is so happy.
Yeah. I just thought, my goodness, if only the Celtic fans and the Rangers fans would clean up after themselves, when they ransack Glasgow after they've won. It's kind of odd that, I'm not a football person, but it's kind of odd that, a team wins and then the city's wrecked, But anyway. But no, yeah, it's an... And that's for the Japanese. I was listening. That's a matter of respect. Respect for the fact that they made it to the World Cup. Respect for the fact for the players. Respect for the hosts. And I think that's a kind of a way of life that, and what harm does it do? I know. It's nothing but good.
And the image that they created, the whole football fan is like, okay, look at those Japanese fans. It's a personal decision, but their dedication and their discipline showed up in the whole stadium. And even the players left their jerseys well, like, folded and spotless clean.
Yeah.
That's just a personal decision as a group that Japanese did, and that actually shows in their country as well. They have one of the cleanest countries in the world. So it goes to a personal level. That's a really good example that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking about that in my life, so I need to give that a wee bit more thought, how I could do that. But yeah, excellent. Okay. We usually finish off with a wee question from a previous guest. So we've maybe kind of touched on this, but as a sector, working in the sustainability sector and construction, how do we keep sustainability at the heart of the agenda? More so for not for people who are involved in the industry, but for the person sitting on their couch in their house. How do we actually engage them and keep that in their forethoughts?
I would be a bit bold on this. I think if you want to influence anything, in terms of policy, in terms of lifestyle, you just have to stand out and show it. You can tell people, do this, do that, all you want, and it all depends on their willingness to listen to you. But if you show it, if you walk the talk, the policymakers, the environmentalists, persons, individuals, if you show it, if it's like reflected in your daily life, that's how you can influence. That's how you can, not just the industry, like I said previously, it's a personal decision. Like you can live a sustainable and efficient life on your own. But it's good to kind of compile with the big picture as well. So I think even in terms of policy, if a country has like, okay, bring me net zero by 2045, then show it to me. Yeah. If a person has like, okay, let me be an active traveler, let me not depend on carbon, let me not depend on, vehicles if I don't need to, show it to me, like walk, let me see it on your health, let me see it on your well-being, let me see it on the way you think and you walk. So I think my answer to that is like standing out, show it, and as much as you understand it, just leave it. Because your words mean so much as the willingness of the next person, but your actions speak, you can show it through your actions and people can see the difference.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, cool. I'm thinking about all the things in my household just now that younger daughters don't do for this environment, Just Eats, both get cars, all that kind of stuff, and you're thinking, right, is that really the right thing to do? But yeah, it's a journey, and I'm sure we will get there. We are making improvements.
We are. And we are going in the right direction.
We are going in the right direction, definitely. Derartu, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure your insights will be of interest to all of our listeners and our viewers. And just before we go, I need you to leave a wee question for the next guest. Now I know you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So if something that might be construction related.
Construction related. Does it have to be construction related?
Well, maybe. What's your question? I'll tell you.
No. Okay. Construction related. I would say, if you would involve in, active travel system, or like building an efficient green infrastructure, what would be your move? Would it be on the transport sector? Would it be on the, what's your choice? Which way do you want to go?
All right, excellent. Well, I know who the next guest is, so I think that question could be a really interesting discussion. So thank you for that. Again, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
And I look forward to it releasing. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Kenneth.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in to the Hard Hat Talks. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. That way, you'll be sure to never miss an episode. If you've got any feedback or a topic you want us to tackle, please drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Till next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep your hard hat on.